Zicheng. It is said that Zicheng, a native of Jiangning, capsized and drowned while crossing Dongting Lake. His son Liangshu, who was a jinshi in the late Ming dynasty, was still in his arms at the time. Zicheng's wife, Du Shi, was so distraught when she heard the bad news about her husband that she committed suicide by taking poison. Liangshu was raised by his great-grandmother. He later passed the jinshi examination and was sent to Hubei as an official. After more than a year, he was transferred to Hunan. When he walked to Dongting Lake, he thought of his father who had drowned. He cried bitterly and reported to his boss that he had insufficient financial resources and asked to resign. His superiors refused and demoted him to county magistrate, subordinate to Hanyang Prefecture. Liangshu refused to leave, and the director of the hospital repeatedly urged him to reluctantly take office. After taking office, he became bohemian, often traveling around the world and ignoring political affairs. One day, he went out on a boat trip. At night, when the boat was moored by the river, I heard the melodious sound of the cave flute coming from the shore. When the mood struck, he abandoned his boat and went ashore, taking advantage of the moonlight to look in the direction where the flute sound was coming from. After walking about half a mile, I saw a few isolated huts in a wilderness, with lights faintly shining through. I peeped out of the window and saw 3 people sitting and drinking inside. The one in the upper seat is a scholar in his 30s. The one in the lower seat is an old man, and sitting horizontally is a young man playing the flute. After the young man finished playing the song, the old man applauded him. The scholar was facing the wall, muttering something like a poem, and the sound of the young man's flute and the old man's praise seemed to turn a deaf ear. The old man suddenly said, "Brother Lushi must have a masterpiece. Please recite it aloud so that we can also appreciate it." The scholar then chanted in a long voice, "The wind and moon over the river are cold and desolate, and the thin grass and scattered flowers turn into mud. Thousands of miles of clouds and mountains cannot fly, but the dream soul is west of the bamboo bridge every night." The voice is sad and sad. The old man smiled and said, "Brother Lushi is back to his old ways." He took a large wine glass, filled it with wine and said, "I don't know how to read poetry, so I sing songs to persuade the bar." So he sang loudly, "Lan Ling's wine is full of tulips, and the jade bowl holds amber light. But it makes the host drunk, and the guests don't know where they are from." After singing, the 3 of them all looked happy, and the atmosphere became relaxed. The young man stood up and said, "Let me see where the moon is tilted." He leaned out of the window and suddenly spotted Liangshu. He clapped his hands and said, "There are people outside the window, and our madness has been seen by others." Liangshu was invited into the room. Everyone bowed to each other, and the old man asked Liangshu to sit opposite the young man. Liangshu tried the wine glass and found it was cold wine, but refused to drink it. The young man stood up again and lit some reeds to warm the wine. Liangshu also ordered his entourage to go out and buy wine, but the old man refused. Liangshu also asked Liangshu about his family background, and Liangshu explained in detail. The old man said respectfully, "It turns out to be the official of my parents in my hometown. My wife's surname is Zhang and she is a local." Pointing at the young man, he said, "This is Stuyahu from Zhangxi." Then he pointed at the scholar and said, "This is brother Lu Shi, who is from the same hometown as you." After Lu Shi met Liangshu, he was very arrogant and disrespectful. Liangshu asked him, "Where do you live? How come you haven't heard of such a talented person before?" Lu Shi replied, "I have been living abroad for a long time, and I don't even know my relatives." "It's really sad." The words were very sad. The old man hurriedly waved his hand to interrupt and said, "When gathering with distinguished guests, if you don't drink quickly, you will just chatter and bore people." He picked up the cup and drank it all. Then he said, "I have a drinking order. Everyone is drinking together. Those who can't do it are punished with drinking. When 3 dice are rolled at a time, the number of one must be equal to the sum of the other 2, and they must coincide. An illusion." He threw it first, and it was unit 2 and 3. And then he sang, 3 plus 2 are the same. and I have an appointment with Fan Gong in the 3rd year of Chicken and Millet. Book of the later Han Dynasty biography of Shishi. Shishi, courtesy name Juking. Jingsheng, Shanyang. He was friends with Zheng Shao of Renan. They both returned home at the same time and agreed to visit Zheng Shao's house on a certain day 2 years later. When the date came, Zheng Shao prepared chicken millet at home. Shishi arrived. Friends are happy to meet each other. The second one was a young man. He rolled to 2s and 1 4. He said politely, I have little knowledge and all I know are common scriptures. Please don't laugh at me. For plus double 2s are the same. The 4 of them gathered in the ancient city. The romance of the 3 kingdoms, Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei were separated during the war, and later met in the ancient city. Brothers are happy to meet each other. Next was Lu Shi, who threw 2 aces, won a 2, and said, 2 plus double aces are the same. Lu Xiang hugged the old man with both hands. Shaanxi General Chronicle. Lu Xiang, courtesy name Zihui, a native of the Tang Dynasty, was entrusted to his grandmother's house when he was young. His father had been traveling abroad for a long time, and his life or death was uncertain. He could not be found in many ways. After Lu Xiangwan went to Hanlin, one day when he was returning from the court, he met an old man on the road. He was moved by sympathy and asked what he was. His father, Lu Xiang, hugged his father and cried bitterly, and welcomed him home. Father and son are happy to meet each other. Finally, Tian Liangshu, who threw the same points as Lu Shi, also sang, 2 plus double points are the same. Mao Rong Ergui Pays Linzong. Book of the later Han, biography of Mao Rong. Mao Rong, courtesy name Ji Wei, was born in Shenliu in the Eastern Han Dynasty. He was working in the fields and sheltering from the rain under trees. Everyone was squatting facing each other. Rong was sitting alone and in danger, and he became more respectful. Guer Linzong was surprised when he saw it, so he talked with him and stayed at his house. The next day, Mao Rong killed a chicken for a meal. Linzong said that it was for himself. After that, he provided it for his mother, and he shared the dishes with the guests. Linzong was deeply moved and called him Xiangshao. Gui, the sound is ghost, an ancient utensil for serving food. The host and guest are happy to meet each other. After the drinking order, Tian Liangshu stood up to say goodbye. Lu Shi stood up and said, I haven't had time to express my friendship with fellow villagers, so why are you so busy leaving? I still want to ask something, please sit down for a while. Tian Liangshu had to sit down again and asked, what do you want to ask? Lu Shi said, I have an old friend who drowned in Dongting Lake. Is he from the same family as you? Tian Liangshu replied, it's my father. I wonder how you met. Lu Shi explained, we were very good when we were young. On the day he drowned, I was the only one present. It was I who collected his body and buried it by the river. Tian Liangshu heard this and bowed down in tears, begging to be directed to his father's tomb. Lu Shi said, you still come here tomorrow. Tell you again. It's easy to find, a few steps away from here. You can see 10 reeds growing on the grave. Tian Liangshu cried and said goodbye. Back on the boat, Tian Liangshu didn't sleep all night. Looking back on Lu Shi's words, every sentence has a profound meaning. As soon as the sky dawned, I couldn't wait to rush there. I was shocked to see that all the huts from the night before were gone. Then we went to the place pointed by Lu Shi, and sure enough there was a tomb with a bunch of reeds growing on the tomb. After counting exactly 10 reeds, we suddenly realized Lu Shi turned out to mean 10 reeds. What I met last night was my father's ghost. He also asked the locals in detail about the origin of this tomb. It turns out that 20 years ago, there was a local rich man named Gao who was very charitable. He fished out all the drowned people one by one and built tombs for them, so there are several tombs here. So Tian Liangshu dug the grave, collected his father's remains, abandoned his official position and returned to his hometown. After returning home, he asked his grandmother about his father's appearance, and found that he was exactly the same as Lu Shi. Du Yu of Jiangxi turned out to be Tian Liangshu's cousin. He drowned in the river when he was 19 years old. Later, his father lived in Jiangxi. He also realized that his mother, Mrs. Du, died and was buried west of the bamboo bridge, so there is a sentence in Lu Shi's poem The Dream Soul is west of the bamboo bridge every night. I just don't know who the old man is, and I can't find out.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.